Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 85 of Coach Bennett's podcast. That's right, 85. And now you may be thinking, all right, I know that 84 is like your favorite number. What are you going to do about 85? I love 85 too. I absolutely love 85. And if there wasn't an 84, then 85 would probably be my favorite number. And now that I'm saying that, I don't even know if 84 and 85 really are my favorite numbers, but I do love them. You know what? They're kind of like kids, you know? I've got 3 kids. I don't have a favorite kid, but I love them all. And I love so many different numbers too. You know what I mean? This makes no sense at all, but this is episode 85, and the rest of the episode, for the most part, is going to make sense. The title of this one is Inspire. It was going to be inspiration. It was going to be inspired, but, you know, I'm a verbs guy, so I decided to go with the verb. So here we are with Inspire as episode 85. And let me just tell you this before we get into, the heart and soul of this podcast today. I have been so inspired over the last week by so many different things. I'm going to start by where I was last week. I was in Colorado. How cool is that? The answer, very cool, because this was the first time I was ever in Colorado, at least outside of an airport in Colorado. What was I doing? Great question. I'm going to tell you. I was at Niwot High School celebrating the boys that won the NXN, the Nike Cross Nationals National Championship, back in early December. So we were able to head out there and celebrate with the team in front of their entire school and their community, kind of bring what happened here in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon. That's where NXN, that Nike Cross Nationals, was at the beginning of December, and bring that back. Because what happens is sometimes these kids achieve this like Mount Olympus type moment here in Portland, Oregon, when they win NXN. By the way, NXN is the High School Cross Country National Championships. And sometimes it doesn't translate by the time they get back the way we would like. It's hard to fathom how big a deal it is to win NXN. It's hard to put it in context if you're not there for someone that's, maybe lucky enough to have watched the live stream, or they read about it online or in a newspaper. By the way, pouring a little bit out for newspapers. We need more newspapers. We need better newspapers, but we definitely need more newspapers. So my point here is we were able to go out there and put on a pep rally at their school, and it was amazing. So I was not only, because I want to make a point here, I was not only inspired by the boys program. The girls program at Niwot High School is one of the best high school programs in the country also. They were runner-ups at the national championship last year. One of the girls on their team was national champion last year and was first team All-American this year. So the boys and girls at Niwot High School are extraordinary. So I was inspired by the entirety of the program, but it doesn't stop there. I was inspired by the students at this school because they were so positive, they were so genuine, they were so supportive and so into this pep rally that it was hard not to be inspired by the entire school. And the band was rocking, and the cheerleaders were doing a great job, and the teachers were there and they were having a great time. Let me just tell you something about teachers. Great teachers, are just like the ultimate blessing. And it looks like Niwot's got a ton of them. Because as someone who used to teach, let me just tell you this. what you want out of your teacher is someone who's incredibly passionate about their subject, but even more passionate about the kids that they're teaching. And they realize that education and wisdom occurs and is shared outside of the classroom as well. And that these moments, like these pep rallies, can sometimes be as important or more important than anything that happens inside a classroom. Getting to cheer on your classmates and your teammates, being able to celebrate together as a community, getting to feel like you're a part of and not apart from something successful. These are the things that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later, when you're going through a tough time and you're wondering, am I a success? Have I ever been a success? Can I keep going? Do I have what it takes? You're going to reach back and try to find examples where you can say positively, yes, I'm enough. I can do this. I can hang on. I can make it another day. I'm strong enough. I'm strong enough to ask for help. And I'll tell you what, it's not always inside the classroom during your time in high school where you're going to find these moments. And I'll tell you another thing, more often than not, it happens outside of the classroom. That does not diminish what's happening inside the classroom. In fact, if the teachers are doing their job, they're setting their students up for success both inside and outside the classroom and celebrating the successes of their students inside and outside the classroom. Because I'll tell you another thing. If you're successful inside the classroom, you're going to be more successful on the playing field. And if you can believe that your successes on the playing field, your discipline, your perseverance, your work ethic that you show at practice, on the courts, on the pitch, on the tracks, on the trails, can be relatable or usable inside the classroom, you're going to be more successful inside the classroom, which is why coaches need to inspire their athletes to work to the best of their ability inside a classroom, and teachers inside the classroom, if they want better students inside the classroom, celebrate what the kids are doing outside of the classroom. It shouldn't be an either or situation. It should be an and situation. A-N-D, not E-N-D, A-N-D. You can be successful inside and outside of the classroom. And your success inside should be motivating. It should be fuel for what you're doing outside of the classroom. And what you do outside of the classroom should be motivating, inspiring, and also fuel for what you can do inside the classroom. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, I've got a lot more to say, and I even sprinkled within there, the word inspire and inspired and all that cool stuff. So let's get started, shall we? Let's get started with episode 85. Inspire. That's right. And we're going to break down the words. But here's the cool thing. My favorite words not only have multiple definitions that I love, they also have multiple versions of themselves, not unlike all of you. I use an example of great teachers. But those great teachers, they're not just teachers. They're husbands, wives, they're partners, they're coaches. They've got their aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. They're neighbors. They're teammates. They're writers and painters. I'm sure some of them juggle. I don't juggle. That's not true. I can juggle a little bit. I can juggle 3 balls at the same time. I'm not doing any tricks, but I can juggle. So maybe there are actually quite a people out there that are teaching and juggling. My point is, you're not just one thing, ever. You are so much more. A lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for that. And a lot of times what we do is we'll say, well, I'm not something, because you think that you have to be only that something when you are that something. You're never just one thing. You're many somethings, okay? Just parking that there as we get in here, because I'm going to break down inspire inspired, and inspiration. So let's start with the verb. Oh yeah, inspire. We're starting with the verb. Definition number 1 for inspire: to fill with an animating, quickening, or exalting influence. That's quite a definition. I think whoever wrote that is showing off, right? To fill with an animating, quickening, or exalting influence. Ooh. All right, we're going to keep moving on. All right, definition 2: to produce or arouse a feeling, a thought. All right, I like that. How about we move on to number 4: to influence or impel. To influence or impel. Okay, I like that. These are actions, right? Now, I'm bouncing down, all the way down to definition 10. Yes, inspire has many definitions. Definition 10: to take into the lungs in breathing. Inhale. That's right. Another way of saying inhale is inspire. I love that. And we're going to come back to that. But that's the verb inspire. Let's move on now to the nouns. The noun version is inspiration. All right? Inspiration. That's what we're talking about now. An inspiring or animating action or influence. That's inspiration. Again, we're talking nouns here. Definition 2: something inspired as an idea. Right? Okay. Definition 3: a result of inspired activity. 4. Yes, we're going down to 4. A thing or person that inspires. Okay, that's the 4th definition for inspiration. A thing or person that inspires. 6, we're skipping 5. 6, the drawing of air into the lungs. Inhalation. Okay, that's right. Like you're seeing the parallel definitions here between the noun and the verb, right? Okay, so inspiration, definition 6, the drawing of air into the lungs. Inhalation. All right, that's my definitions I want you to remember for inspiration, noun. Now we're going to move on to the adjectives, okay? And the adjective version is inspired. 1, definition 1, right? Aroused, animated, or imbued with the spirit to do something by or as if by supernatural or divine influence. I'm going to pause here for just a second because I love this definition of inspired, the adjective version of what we're talking about today. I'm going to say it again, not because the word aroused is in there, which just makes me laugh because, come on, we're all 12 years old. Aroused, animated, or imbued with the spirit to do something by or as if by supernatural or divine influence. When you are inspired, when you are animated, imbued with the spirit to do something, yes, aroused as well, to do something, by or as if by supernatural or divine influence. It can feel like something supernatural or divine is at work when you are inspired. By the way, definition number 3 of inspired, inhaled. Okay, we're coming back to that later. But those are the definitions. And those are the versions of the word that I want you to be thinking about. I don't want you to be just thinking about the noun. I don't want you to be just thinking about the adjective. And I don't want you to just be thinking about the verb. We're going to be thinking about all of them. We're going to be thinking about all of them during this podcast. And it's essential that you think of inspiration and inspire and inspired as separate things. They all work together. Don't get me wrong. They all play a part. They are connected, obviously. But I want you to have them be unique things because they are. One's an action. One's a description, right? And one's a thing. So I want you to think of them as what they are. Connected, but separate. Got it? All right, that's good. Because here's the thing, and this is why we're going through this, and this is why it's so important. As runners, I'll tell you this straight up. You're going to run better. You're going to train better. You're going to recover better. You're going to come back better when you're inspired. But I'm going to tell you something else straight up. You're not always going to feel like you're inspired. And you're not always going to be at the same level of inspiration. That's just the reality. It would be great, I guess, if we were always totally inspired, but maybe we would take it for granted and it would cease to seem supernatural or a divine influence at play if we were always super inspired, right? I think in order to accomplish greatness, in order to achieve great goals, you have to realize it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be there. Those things you need, like inspiration, motivation, discipline, perseverance, optimism, positivity, they're not always going to be there. It's just reality. It's no different with life. No one thinks that they're always going to be inspired day in and day out, motivated day in and day out, excited about the day in and day out, popping straight out of bed, taking on the day. That's just not a reality. Now, you can pretend, you can lie, but that doesn't change the fact that you're not. I mean, I could lie to all of you right now and say, listen, the key to success is to always be inspired. And the key to always being inspired is to tell yourself that you're inspired, to tell yourself that you're always going to be in a great mood. You're always going to be able to get it done. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? And there are people out there that say this stuff, that it's just... It's nonsense, that you can just, I guess, yell or curse or spit or grunt or, I don't know, clench your teeth. And if you do that enough, like you're just going to grind your way through everything. That's just not real. That's just not true. So the reality here is that you're not always going to be inspired. That's it. Sometimes you're going to be looking for inspiration and not finding it. But hopefully, by the end of this podcast, we're going to figure out how to harness inspiration, take advantage of being inspired, how we can inspire others, ourselves, and when things aren't so easy, when inspiration is at a minimum or seems to be missing, how we can find it, where to look for it, how to create it. That's the goal of today. Because like I said, you are going to run better, recover better, heal faster, if you are inspired. So that's what the purpose of today is. That's why I wanted to go through that. And I think it is just important to be honest with each other right off the bat. You're not. I don't care how great your goal is. You're not going to always be inspired. Stuff happens. We get tired. We have stumbles and falls and barriers we bump into and hurdles that we crash over. And, sometimes you just ask yourself, like, is this worth it? What am I doing? Sometimes it's February. Sometimes it's Tuesday. At least for me, those are the rough months and days. Jeez, Tuesdays. What's up with Tuesdays? And February. Don't even get me started right now. I mean, we got another couple weeks here in January, and then we got February. Now, if you're listening to this podcast like later on and it's April, just be thankful that February's in your rearview mirror and you got a couple of months until the next exit says February. And here's the thing, you can't skip it. You got to take the exit. You got to spend your time in February. It's just, it's the worst. All right. We're starting with the verb, right? That's why I wanted to start here, because action. I love action, all right? And if we start with the verbs, we can start with some actions. And I'm going to start with the hardest one, all right? The importance of inspiring yourself, because it's not easy to do. And usually, and by usually what I mean is almost always, athletes don't think they can inspire themselves. They're looking outside of themselves first for inspiration. And That's not what you should do. You should look inside first. You should look in a mirror first. You should check yourself out because you can inspire yourself. And what do I mean by inspire yourself? Well, we went through the definition, didn't we? You can fill yourself with an animating, a quickening, an exalting influence. You can influence or impel yourself. If I were to ask you who are the most influential, not influencers, I hate that term influencers, but who are the most influential people in your life? It would take hours probably before you mention yourself, and that's only because you ran out of people. Actually, you'd probably run out of people and still not mention yourself. Why is that? I've never, ever heard anyone answer that question with, well, the most influential person in my life is me. Well, yeah, that's not ego. That's not arrogance. That's honesty. You are the most influential person in your life. Oh, yeah. You're the one who can influence yourself more than anyone else. You're the one that can impel yourself to do something more than anyone else, which means you are the person in your life that can inspire you more and better than anyone else in this life. Period. Send the telegram because it is done. That's the truth, Ruth. You are the person who can inspire you the most, which is why I'm starting with you and that verb. Simply knowing that, which many of you probably didn't know that prior to this podcast, is beneficial. Because when you're looking for inspiration and you're trying to find it and you're wandering around in the metaphorical wilderness, just grasping in the darkness for inspiration, stop looking outside and look inside. There's a good chance you're going to find it. There's a great chance you're going to be able to inspire yourself. If nothing else, you should be inspired by your effort to find inspiration outside, therefore being inspired by your inside. Oh yeah. So think about it. Think about how you can inspire yourself. Think about what is inspiring about you to you. Don't fall into the trap of trying to figure out how you're inspiring to other people at this moment. That's not the game we're playing right now. We'll play that game later, but we're not playing that game right now. What we're playing right now is you thinking of all the things you do that inspire you about you. Oh yeah, that's what we're doing. And if you give yourself an honest chance at doing this, you are going to find things that are inspiring. Don't sell yourself short, even though you probably sell yourself short more than anyone else. You want to be a better runner? Do this exercise. If you got to press pause and come back, do it. But I'll tell you what, you may be a great son, daughter, partner, student, teammate. You may be gutsy. You may be gritty. There are so many things about you that if you just stop being such a jerk to yourself, you're going to realize, wow, you're pretty inspiring. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, you just became a better runner by simply acknowledging that. Having that in your back pocket, that when inspiration seems low, you can go to yourself to find inspiration. The next thing you can do, because I know a lot of people are wildly uncomfortable right now thinking about themselves in a positive light. Get over it. You want to be a better runner, you're going to have to learn how to get comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes. This is one of those moments. Staying with the verbs, let's think about others now that inspire you. And keep a list. I don't know why people think like they have to keep everything in their head. I'll tell you what, you can keep a lot in your head, but you can also write stuff down. You know, listen, I've got a great memory. I do. It doesn't mean that I didn't keep photo albums when I was younger. It doesn't mean that I didn't keep books that I had read. It's because I couldn't keep it all in. So I had to have a backup plan. My backup plan were photo albums, books, movies. That's all I'm telling you to do is have backup. So if you do have people in your life that inspire you, and it doesn't have to be people in your immediate circle, but I would start there first. I would start with family, friends, teammates. That's who I would start with. Who inspires you? Really, truly inspires you. Then start moving further out of your circle until eventually you're getting to authors and actors and athletes and engineers and doctors that have done great things in their field, people you've read about, people you've watched documentaries about, artists and creators. That's what I want you to do. Write it down so you can go to these lists when and if you're lacking inspiration, you're low on inspiration, you feel the need to be inspired. And here's the thing. Yes, we just talked about how you can inspire yourself. It doesn't mean you're always going to. Don't expect yourself to magically light a flame because you realize you are inspiring to yourself. Sometimes you gotta ask for help. Sometimes you gotta go to someone else or something else. That's what I want you to do. Who and what also inspires you beyond yourself. And write these people and these things, these moments, these songs, these paintings, these books, these poems, these sporting events down. So when and if, like I said, you are low on inspiration and you need to be inspired, you can go to the people, the places, the things, the moments that inspire you. So yeah, there's a little homework here. But come on, give me a break. The last verb aspect of inspire that I want to go and talk to you about is how you can inspire others. Yeah, I want you to think about how you can inspire others. I want you to think about who you can inspire. And I want you to think about what that word inspired means. Because I want you to think of both sides. Who can you inspire, knowing what inspire means? And then what does it mean to be inspired? So what have you done for someone else? I mean, it's easy for us to kind of know what it feels like to be inspired by someone else. But have we thought about what it feels like for someone else to be inspired by us? Because there are people out there that, yes, can, have been, and will be inspired by you. And dare I say, there will be more people inspired by you if you acknowledge the simple truth that you can be an inspiration for other people. So who can you inspire? Is it students of yours? Are you a teacher? Is it your staff because you're a manager at a business? Is it your fellow classmates because you're a student? Are you on a team? Can you inspire your teammates? Maybe you have siblings. Maybe you have parents, neighbors, the community. Who can you inspire? I'll tell you a little secret here. It is very inspiring to inspire other people. All right? So I want you to think about who you can inspire. And then we can get into some nouns here. All right? And I want you to be thinking, though, about being inspired, inspiration, and inspire when we're thinking about nouns. What nouns come to you when you think about that? Like for me, obviously, I think of runners. I think of the sport of running. I think of writers, and I think of writing. I think of teachers. I think of teaching. I think of coaches and coaching. I think of artists and art. So what I want you to do is I want you to take some time and think of the nouns causing the inspiration to happen. I want you to think about the nouns that are inspiring. And I want you to think about the nouns that are inspired by these other nouns, inclusive of you, by the way, you're a noun. But I want you to take some time and do that as well. See, a lot of times we can think that running is all about minutes, meters, miles, pace, intervals, repeats, hills. We're going to do double threshold workouts, and how long is my long run, and what's my weekly volume, and what's the effort that I'm putting in. This is all true. All of that plays a large, large part in how successful your running is going to be for you, right? But there's so much more that plays a part, and inspiration is a massive part of how well you're going to run, how much you're going to enjoy your running, which is going to lead to how consistent you are in your running, which will then come back around to how successful you are in your running. So this is not just a bunch of just, cheesy conversation that we're having. And I know that there are coaches out there that they're not going to bring up how important it is for the kids to be inspired. There are coaches that are not going to bring up how essential it is for these adults that they're working with to feel like inspiration is there. It's tangible. It's achievable to be inspired. It's just not going to come up. It's just do the work. Do the work, and that's going to take care of everything. Nope. That's not how it works. Doing the work takes care of the work. There's lots of other stuff involved. If you're not inspired, it's going to be uninspired work. You tell me, long term, who's going to end up with a better portfolio of work? The person who has inspired work or the person that has uninspired work? It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer. It's obviously the person with the inspired work. So here we are. And it doesn't matter this time of year. When I say here we are, you know what? Whatever time of year it is, it is. I mean, right now I'm recording it in January, but it doesn't have to be January. It could be February. It could be April. It could be June. Because there's no time of year where inspiration is always flowing, where you're always going to be inspired. Year in and year out, June, I'm always inspired. That's just not how it works. So this podcast works any time of year, because this topic is always important. And if you can understand what it means, inspired, and inspiration, then you're going to have a better chance at staying inspired, finding inspiration, inspiring yourself and others. That's why we're talking about this. That's why it's important. Your running is going to be better because of this. More importantly, all of that time when you're not running will be better too. You don't need to only be inspired when you're running or about your running. You should have inspiration for the rest of your life that goes on for the other 23 hours of the day, right? You should be able to find inspiration in other parts of your life that have nothing to do with running. And by the way, that will help your running. And you should be inspired by things that have nothing to do with running, which by the way, will help your running. And you should be inspired by people that have nothing to do with your running, which by the way, will help your running. And you should be inspired by things that you do that have nothing to do with your running, which by the way, will help your running. All right, we're going to be wrapping up here. We're going to have a mindset minute first, though, which is why I want to get Coach Tammy in here to do a mindset minute for you, because it's been a couple of weeks, and you know what? Let's be honest, it's probably the best part of the show. So I'm going to bring in Coach Tammy right now. I'm going to hand the baton off to her. She's going to give you a mindset minute. So without any further delay, Coach Tammy, the floor is yours.
Sometimes when we are looking to other people for inspiration, it can all of a sudden turn into comparison, and then it can sometimes turn into not feeling so good because we think that we aren't at the same level as the people that are inspiring us. And so sometimes it can feel a little bit defeating. So here's what I say to you. If you are looking to others for inspiration and you find yourself starting to go down that comparison trap, just stop. Think about what it is about that person that you find inspiring. Is it their work ethic? Is it their personality? Is it their fashion sense? Is it their speed? What is it about that person that inspires you? And how can you do a little piece of that today? How can you take a little piece of what inspires you about them? And how can you have that in your own flavor, in your own way? So then it turns it back into inspiration. You're using them to inspire you to go do and be something that you already are. You're just going to emphasize it.
I mean, what can I say? She's the best. That's why she's Coach Bennett, the greatest, or the greater. Is it now the greatest? Did I just change her to Coach Bennett the greatest? I guess she could be Coach Bennett the greatest, which would therefore be Coach Bennett the greater, because that would be in comparison to me. So it's redundant, but it makes sense. All right, moving on here. The last thing I wanted to talk about when it came to this topic is that definition about inhalation, about breathing. Because I think it's just so poetic, so beautiful, that one of the definitions of inspiration, is to breathe in. It's inhalation. That's one of the definitions of inspire. It's to breathe, which to me has always rung true, because I think inspiration is essential for a great life, just like breathing is. So I hope you think the same, and I hope you know that no one ever taught you how to breathe, and no one has to teach you how to be inspired. You just got to know that it's important. Keep finding it, keep looking for it, and keep doing it. Cheers to all of you. Thank you for listening. Check out the show notes for any links that I think might be fun and inspiring. And as always, thank you for following and subscribing to the podcast, rating and reviewing it. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other. I'll meet you on that next starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and Nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.